I remember when I was a personal trainer, I learned this the hard way, to be honest. Most of my clients, like at the beginning, when I was new to the industry, like the first year, I was shy and I was like, I really want to sell personal training and have more clients and make more money. But then I noticed that I'm allowing the client to take expertise and take the lead.
Thank you all for joining us today, both you guys that are here in person and everybody online. Before we start with our topic, I would like to introduce our guest for today. So Patrick has been a part of the fitness industry since 2004. He started off as a personal trainer and then transitioned into being an educator in 2007. He holds 2 master's degrees, one of them in exercise science and another one in executive MBA. And a lot of his work is placed around research. Fun fact, I actually did my level 3 personal training certification with him in 2016, and it was incredible. So I'm very happy and excited to have you here today and actually share all your knowledge and experience with our trainers. Can you tell us a bit more about your professional journey? How did it start, and how did you move into education from the personal training?
First of all, thank you for having me, Alexandra. It's good to see you again, and good to have you guys here and online. Well, basically, I started as someone training at the gym. Then I started, because it changed my life. Exercising and specifically resistance training changed my life. So I was a really weak child and weak muscles, and I was, really like the last. I used to come the last in any kind of sports when I was in school. Resistance training changed that for me. Then I started educating all my friends and everyone that I could talk to about the importance of resistance training. Then after I finished school, I started studying personal training because I was already in the med school studying biology. And I fell in love in the field, so I pursued the career in fitness. And in 2007, I became an educator. I started sharing my knowledge with other personal trainers. I worked for many companies in the field until 2011. I left all the gyms. I started working exclusively as an educator, and I started my organization, which is Inspire Fitness Academy. The main focus in the fitness industry nowadays is on research, because for the last 5 or 7 years, research has been evolving, especially in the fitness industry, and it's changing in terms of quality of the research, in terms of the number of research that are being published, and it's helping us a lot being more efficient, especially when it comes to our topic today, program design, and many other topics. So that's pretty much it.
We'll dive into the topic, but before we do that, I just want to give you a bit of an overview of what we will cover. So the topic for today is program design. We're going to be specifically focusing on program design for general population. And I know that this is a topic that is frequently spoken about. We also tend to hear a lot of repetitive information, which I think is not really going to be the case today. When we were preparing for the session, I actually was able to learn a lot. So we're going to be talking a lot about newest research, what is actually true, and then how to also navigate, like, from the pile of information, how do we actually pick and choose that which is correct. So we will speak about the importance of program design, how to manipulate different variables, recovery, deload, hypertrophy, strength. There's a lot that we will be speaking about today. And the last part of the session, we're going to leave as usual for your questions. So whatever questions you have, you're going to be able to ask both you guys online and in person. So when we speak about program design, a lot of the time, it is something which is perceived as very important for professional level athletes. But I tend to see trainers sometimes being skeptical. Why do I need to spend time and program for general population? So why is it important, and do we need to do it?
First of all, let's think of program design as a plan. So anything in your life that's not properly planned, it's not going to work 100% as expected. So we can start first of all by your financial plan. So if you don't know exactly how much you're spending and how much you're earning, you're not going to end up, reaching your financial goals. Another thing is calories. If you just, you don't have to count calories, that is true. But if you want to make sure that you reach your goal, that at a certain point you have to estimate at least or calculate your calories. Same thing when it comes to program design. So if you're not sure what you're training, what are the exercises you're doing, what are the sets, first of all, you cannot monitor your client's progress. And at the same time, you're not sure, what did you do last session and what's going to happen the next session. So program design have lots of benefits. It is true, the more professional you are, or the more professional my client is, the more well-rounded the program should be. And I should be picky about periodization, about deload phase, about many other things related to my clients, and it depends definitely on the discipline. So program design is very important because as a start, it reminds me about my plan. It reminds me about the client's goal and how I'm moving forward. And the next thing is it helps me monitor the progress and how it's happening. And one last part is adherence. So I have a tool now that I can show the client how they're progressing since they started, whether they started showing up once a week and then they're showing up twice a week, if they're using now more weights, if they're showing more progress on muscular endurance. I have a tool where I can show them that.
And also another question that I frequently get asked is what to do with the clients that have a bit of unpredictable schedules. Let's say somebody signs up for a 20 session package. I do sit down and I make the entire program, but then the client starts canceling, rescheduling. I need to then move everything around and maybe redo my program. So what to do in that case?
Right. In that case, I can still design a one session per week program, or 2 sessions per week program, where if the client show up for 1 session, they can still exercise. If they show up for 2 sessions, they can still exercise. But I need something documented. I need something documented because my job is to motivate the client to show up more. And if I make life easier for the client starts making my session a priority. If my clients see that I'm working in a sporadic way and in a way that just whatever machine that gets into my way, I can tell them to train or to perform, then he would see that I'm not taking it, or the client would see that I'm not taking it seriously. So that's why I would still design a plan. Probably I would have the same plan for the coming weeks because they're not showing up, they're not consistent. So I would still do the same plan with minor changes, but I still have a plan in place.
And you said it very well. If I'm not taking it seriously as a trainer, the clients will not take it seriously. So as seriously as I take it, it's going to transfer onto them.
At the end of the day, we used to blame the client for many things. For example, we blame the client, especially now we're close to New Year, and soon we have the fun memes about New Year's resolutioners. Research have shown that New Year's resolution, it's a great thing, by the way, that can help people start changing their lifestyle. The problem is they do it on their own, so they don't know how to start and they don't know how to continue. So we used to blame the client for not adhering to the exercise program, but actually it's the coach to blame, at least 80% of the time. Because it's the coach who would make the program fun. It's the coach who have to support the client and try their best to keep them active, whether during the session or outside the session. If I'm not taking it serious and I'm not believing in my client, most of the times my client will lose believing in themselves and in their capabilities of change. If, Alexandra, you look at the definition of health and wellness coaches, because what's close to what we do nowadays, it's a bit more than training. It's more than coaching, and that's what people need. So training is just doing the session and going home. Coaching is doing your best to help them reach their goals. And that's why we call a basketball coach, not a basketball trainer, or football coach, and not a football trainer. So if you look at the definition of health and wellness coaches, you will notice that in the definition, it shows there's a statement saying that do the best that you can so you can help them reach their goals and unconditionally believe in their capabilities to change. So one of the ways you show this is by showing the dedication in preparing their plan, having their session ready, documenting their progress. And one more thing is at least once a month, showing them their progress, sitting with them and doing a coaching session and showing them this progress that's happening.
It's such a powerful tool, not only again for having visibility of your training, but also as a motivational tool. One example that I always like to give is there's a big difference between training with a program and just coming to sweat out a little bit, because if you're just coming to the gym without a plan, it's going to be so much easier for you as a client to cancel your session. It's fine, I skip it, maybe I can go for a run, for a swim, I can just do something else to burn my calories. But if I know that I'm on a program, it means that each session is actually directed towards an end goal, and it just becomes, I think, on a mental and emotional level, much more difficult for the clients to actually cancel. So
Absolutely.
Also compliance.
Absolutely. It might work as a start, just to, keep the client active, do some treadmill, some, general work. But later on, I have to transition into a more clear session. So it might work for a couple of weeks, just giving them some exercises like cardio, a couple of body weight exercises, but then I should have a plan in place and I should keep this plan. And if I may add here, it's very important to sit with your client and explain the plan. So take just 10 minutes and explain. It's their right to know what's your strategy for them, how you're going to tackle their goals. And by the way, this makes a huge difference between any trainer and a professional trainer. And then follow up with them every month. So these are things, these are tools that are there, available, free for every personal trainer, but you don't see a lot of trainers that actually are
Definitely.
using it.
It's such a small detail, but it actually makes a huge difference, involving the clients in the process. Let's dive into more technical side of things. So when we speak about program design, essentially this is trainers manipulating certain variables in order to achieve a certain outcome. So we speak about sets, reps, weights, tempo, all of that. So what are these components? And can you maybe tell us a little bit about latest research on
Absolutely.
these?
So first of all, let's just go back to whenever we're designing a program, the components of program design that we look at. Probably the most one that we're discussing now in the industry is intensity/effort. We used to discuss only intensity, but we now like put it with effort, and I'll explain why. There's also the volume, there's the frequency, there's the exercise selection. Exercise selection, we used to think that it's a big thing. It is, but not in cases like hypertrophy and in cases that are, you know, like general. And I'll explain why, because we used to put a lot of effort on choosing the exercises, but now it's more about the effort that you put in conducting this exercise, because it showed if we compare two exercises, compound and isolated exercises, hypertrophy wise, they can give exactly the same effort. That's what research is showing nowadays. So they are also the resting time, the tempo, and the training systems, things like superset, drop set, myoreps, and so on. So let's begin first of all by intensity and hypertrophy and effort. So we used to talk about the weight that you're going to choose, or the percentage of your RM. The recommendation when I started teaching in the industry, it was like, as long as you're performing a weight that is more than 60% of your RM, of your repetition max, and you do that for 8 to 12 repetitions, then most likely, if you're eating well, if you're sleeping well, you are going to reach a hypertrophy, and you're going to have bigger muscles. Research have showed, first of all, that the spectrum of reaching hypertrophy is not just an 8 to 12 repetition. It's a 5 to 30 repetition, more or less, 28, 30. But there's one main condition, is that most of your set should be what we call stimulating set. And the stimulating set, it's something that is close to your failure. So now we need to put this in the right context to begin with. Like if I'm training beginners, definitely that's not the case, because beginners, they cannot reach any close to failure because of the pain next day, muscle soreness, and all of these things that might affect their motivation to train another session. However, when I reach a point where I'm targeting hypertrophy, I need most of my sets to be close to failure. Now, where's the debate in research nowadays? We don't know exactly if it's at failure or close to failure. We're okay with something close to failure. And this is something that you can take as a personal trainer and use the individuality factor. Some of your clients, they might be female, that might benefit more from getting closer to failure. Some, they're okay with just, like far. Some of them need to train at failure. So this is something, it's individual. The only way to know it is by testing. So you try to be at something we call, let's say 0 to 4 RIR, or 4 RIR, which is repetitions in reserves, meaning you still have 4 reps in the tank. So you finished your set and you were capable of doing 4 more, but you stopped. And you monitor your client for 24 to 48 hours later. And that's something very important, especially at the beginning when you start training your clients. So to wait for 24 to 48 hours later because of the delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS. So in case this happens, so you know how to modify your session, because you're okay to have some form of DOMS that should go away 72 hours after the training session, but not more than that. If it's more than that, this is something that you should, go back, revisit the session, decrease the intensity of the session or the effort in the session, or look as well at factors like nutrition and sleep, things that are related to recovery. So going from here is that the effort is something that is essential. You can target 0 to 2, 0 to 4 RIR. However, if there is no effort in the session, even if you're using heavy weights, hypertrophy goals might not be optimized or even met. So that's one thing. So it's not just about the weight you use, it's also about the amount of effort you put in the set. Second thing comes, it's the volume. Earlier in the industry, we used to define volume as the total number of repetitions per muscle group. So if you do an exercise for the chest for 4 sets of 10 repetitions, that's 40 repetitions for the chest. Because the research evolved and showed that if you're not training close to failure, you might not reach your hypertrophy results. They changed the definition. They introduced a new definition for volume, which is total number of hard set. So now we calculate volume as how many hard set per week per muscle group, regardless of the number of repetitions. Now, some personal trainers out there might be asking like, okay, so there's no difference if I do 5 reps, 10 reps, 15, 20. There are still differences, not for hypertrophy, first of all, for enjoyability. Many bodybuilders, you ask them to do more than 10 reps or 12 reps, they don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy reps more than 10 or 12. Like, it's rare to have people, they do 20, 25 reps, but at least you know it's there. If you're on a vacation, if you're in one of those hotels where you don't have a lot of weights and you still want to have a good session and stimulating session, you can use the higher repetition spectrum. So volume is the total number of hard set, and it's about how many hard set per week you do per muscle group. So to start with now, whether there's a defined number, we know more or less that 8 to 9 sets, hard sets per week. It's the maintenance volume, could be an effective volume for some people. More than that, you will have, like more hypertrophy results if you're eating properly, you're recovering properly. Where is the point where you reach diminishing returns? We don't know, it's individual. Some research says 20, 25, but I so believe it depends from one person to the other. So what you need to do is just start kicking in more than 8 to 9 sets per session or per week as a start. Increase gradually, and again, these are hard sets. We don't count the warm-up sets there. Increase gradually until you reach a point where you find that this is, like beyond this point, there is no additional benefits that are happening there.
And these 8 to 9 hard sets, is there the best way to distribute it during the week? Clearly, you will not, should I do it in one session? Should I do it across multiple sessions?
Excellent question. So we start with, first of all, making sure that we're meeting our hard sets. And then once this is there, and we're going to look at the client's availability. Now, about the frequency, some research was able to see a little bit more benefits to training the muscle group more than one time. That doesn't mean if you do your chest muscles or your leg muscles once a week, that's bad. But a few papers were able to show a little bit more advantages, like 2% or 3% more hypertrophy when it comes to splitting your muscle groups, like doing twice a week lower body. And if you think about that logically, so what happens is that, imagine you have 6 exercises for the lower body between glutes, quads, and hamstrings. So you start the first 2 exercises or 3 exercises at high performance. So you're able to train with heavy weights, you're able to reach every set close to failure or at failure. The last 3, you're more fatigued, so you might think you're reaching failure, but it's not actually the real failure that you're reaching. Instead, if you split this into 2, 3 exercises on Monday, 3 exercises on Thursday, the chances are higher that you're gonna give it all that you have on Monday and on Thursday, and you properly reach failure on these sessions. So that's the only advantage. However, if for the trainers out there that are listening, and the guys and the ladies in the studio, if your client is happy and satisfied with what they're doing right now, you don't have to fix anything. If they're reaching their hypertrophy goals, if they're reaching their targets, you don't have to change anything. You might test splitting into 2 if it's better and your client enjoy it. We go for it and we keep on doing it, because something it's very important always to mention, we're practitioners. We operate based on something called evidence-based practice model. So we start our practice with evidence, but that's not enough. Research and evidence is not enough, because you need to add your expertise. And then once you add your expertise, you have one more question to ask, is client's preference. So if whatever you have from evidence and expertise doesn't agree with your client's preference, they don't prefer to do this approach, you have to change it. So that's why we can split it over several times during the week if our client schedule allow that. Otherwise, we keep what we're doing.
And I think it ties really nicely into this question when we speak about training frequency and splits. How do we decide on the best option or on the correct split for the
Absolutely. So one thing that I call it the hard to swallow pill. Training a full body routine multiple times, several times during the week can still lead to good results in hypertrophy. And I mean good result, like almost optimizing hypertrophy. However, some people, they enjoy doing more exercises. Some people, their muscles can take more exercises per session. And in that case, doing a full body workout will take a lot of time. And this is when they start doing the split. Now, there are multiple splits. There is no research out there that was able to agree that this split is convenient and better for the majority more than the other. Whether full body, whether push-pull, whether chest back, whether it's a one muscle per week or true muscle per week, or what we know as the bra split. So no study out there was able to show superiority for one split routine to the other. What mainly decide that is our client's preference and if our client is enjoying this. Now, definitely there's also the volume that you're working at. So let's say if we're training at a volume of 20, this would be like at least 3 exercises to 4 exercises per training session. So this might be a push-pull legs twice a week. If my client is happy and enjoying the split, I will do it. If my client prefers to train the muscle group once a week, I will change the split. So this depends, it comes down to your client's preference as well.
You mentioned earlier that as long as you're performing like close to failure, you're having challenging sets, even the exercise selection is not that important.
Correct.
But let's talk about exercise selection in order of exercise.
Sure. So when it comes to exercise selection, as long you're doing an exercise, and again, I'm speaking specifically about hypertrophy. I'm not talking about strength, powerlifting, sports, because that's a totally different story. Like if you're a power lifter, you cannot say that exercise selection is not important, because at least you need to have the exercises that you compete while doing powerlifting. We're talking about hypertrophy. As long as you're targeting exercises that target the major groups that you want to improve or have more hypertrophy in, so you're fine. So first of all, when it comes to, let's understand a little bit, if you want, the concept of hypertrophy or the mechanism of hypertrophy, how your muscles grow. Long ago, we used to, blame it on or think it's the muscle damage theory. Meaning that you train, you break down the actin and myosin filaments and probably other filaments as well. Your body restore these filaments and put on more proteins. So that means your myofilaments are bigger and your muscle fibers are bigger. That's still there. However, that's not the main driver of hypertrophy. There are 3 different mechanisms. The main driver is something called mechanical tension. You don't even need to reach muscle damage as long you put your muscles under a tension. And funny enough, all these things that we discover today, many of them go back to years and years and years back. In 1850, something like that, there was a guy called Davis. He talked about a theory or a law. It's called Davis' law. It talks about soft tissues, saying that whenever you have soft tissues and you expose them to stress gradually, they will get stronger. And it's exactly what mechanical tension is saying. So whenever you expose your muscles to a certain amount of tension and gradually you build this tension, so this will make your muscles stronger and bigger. And that's the mechanical tension theory. So they're exposed to a tension. To expose them into the right tension, it has to be close to failure. Once you do this again and again, your muscle protein synthesis is stimulated, your muscles are getting bigger. Muscle damage is still fine, and there is also one more mechanism called metabolic stress, is the buildup of lactate and hydrogen ion. I hope I'm not getting too technical into stuff.
Take notes, guys.
So these are fine, but the only thing that we need to watch out from is if I do too much damage and it affects my routine, my plan, then this is not something that is supporting me optimize my hypertrophy. Example, training on Monday. I have another training session for the same muscle groups on Thursday. I had a lot of damage because the session was heavy. I included a lot of eccentric training. And by the way, eccentric training induce more muscle damage. So what will happen? I might not be able to train on Thursday. I might still be sore on Thursday, and this will affect my performance. In this case, muscle damage wasn't something that is supportive. However, if it's just for a day or two and then I recover, then it's something that might optimize hypertrophy. So to answer the exercise selection, so that's hypertrophy. So now when I want to select my exercises, I want something I enjoy doing. I want something that target my muscles. unless I have separate goals. And practically speaking, you know, most of our clients, they want to strengthen an area. There are exercises that they enjoy doing, exercises they don't enjoy doing. Let's say, for example, some of our clients, they like to do the hip thrust, you know, thinking that it is the best exercise for the glutes. So we're fine. We can still include the hip thrust for them. We can still include the squats for them, because also it targets the glutes, the hip abductor machine, and many other things. So anything they prefer doing. But however, I just need to keep few things in mind. Number one, functionality. I need people to keep on functioning in a full range of motion. So squatting is something that is supportive for the joints, for the bones, for the body in general. If I can include squats or deadlift, one of these exercises, I'll be strengthening many muscles at the same time. I need to include things that my client is happy doing. Now, other factors come to play is the, how taxing is the exercise. If your client is really tired today, coming from work and stressed, and you've designed a session with squats, deadlift, and things like that that are taxing on the body, you might consider changing some of these exercises and choosing something that is less taxing. So this way they don't have to put a lot of energy because they're already tired. So this is how you make the decisions to tweak your program and select the exercises. But more than that, you know, as we used to think that there's an area that we're training more than the other, or there's a specific angle at the muscle we're training, this is not 100% true and supported by evidence to many muscles and many exercises.
What about, you mentioned also that as long as you're working close to failure, it doesn't really matter if it's a compound move, isolatory. What about the hormonal responses? We know that if you're training heavy with compound movement, it will affect your testosterone and growth hormone. So that will in turn also have an impact on hypertrophy. How substantial is it?
That's true. We also noticed that if you train hard, this might affect your hormonal level and hormonal secretion. However, in both cases, whether you're training hard, whether you're doing compound exercises or not, the level of hormones that is secreted is not enough to affect hypertrophy and building muscles. So it's a small dosage for a small period of time that is not practically significant to your body. So that's why I wouldn't worry about, like forcing myself to do a squat just for the sake of, for the theory that my testosterone levels will increase, because it will not make a huge difference. It's similar to saying, for example, things like do HIIT training because you will keep on burning calories for 24 hours after the session. That's not true, because the difference, if you're doing a HIIT training session, it's a 50 or 100 calories after your session. So I wouldn't force myself to getting into things that I might not enjoy, and the effect is insignificant.
Mm-hmm. And what about time under tension? That's something that's frequently discussed also when it comes
to... this is something we used to frequently discuss, that, the time under tension, if we increase the time under tension, this will increase the stress on the muscle, this will increase muscle protein synthesis. It is true, but however, we also noticed that, they compared it, whether it's how much time you spend under that tension or whether you are close to failure or not. So they've noticed that as long as you get close to failure, regardless how much time under tension you spend, as long as you reach close to failure, this is something that helps you gain hypertrophy. And by the way, in research, the way they study something close to failure, and to make it more objective, they study the loss in velocity in movements. So they monitor and they measure the speed, your speed, while doing an exercise, and they measure the loss in velocity while doing it. If they see that the loss is velocity, whether it's quick, whether it's happening gradually, as long in both cases you're reaching close to failure, this is stimulating muscle growth. And again, while you're recovering and eating properly.
So to summarize, most importantly, if you're working on hypertrophy for your clients, you want to make sure that they're actually putting in effort.
Absolutely. And here's the challenging part. And that's why, by the way, we can convince many people to have personal trainers, because for some people, they're like, I can train on my own. Well, this is an experiment I always do in class while teaching personal training classes. So I ask everyone to split into pairs and train each other. And for example, to do a 1 set or 2 sets of 10 repetitions of whatever exercise they want. I ask the coach to, tell the client to hold and tell them, estimate how many repetitions you still have, or RIR. Most of the time, 95% of the time, they underestimate it. They think, I can do 4 more. The coach start pushing them, 4 more, 2 more, and then they notice that they were able to do the double the amount of repetition, if not more. So this is something a lot of people think they're training hard, where they're not. So this is where the personal trainer's role comes, while pushing them, but in a healthy way. Know when to push them. Because eventually, And now there's another debate in the industry, by the way, is that um, form is form so important? And you can see a lot of people posting their deadlift with rounded back. Some people saying it's harmful. Some people saying no, it's okay. When it comes to injuries and form, one thing you need to remember is building the capacity to be able to protect your joints and your muscles. So if my client is still a beginner and didn't yet build enough capacity in their muscles, this is not the right time to push them hard and to make them reach failure. At the beginning, I want to make sure they're enjoying the physical activity, they're enjoying what they're doing, they're happy about the session is fun, they're gonna come back, I'm building the relationship with them, and gradually I'm pushing them forward. And I need to make sure, like, if I do 1 to 2 sets, hard sets, I want to monitor what happened 24 or 48 hours later. If they were fine, I can increase to 3-4 sets. So I need to take my time. I need to be patient. They wait my time here, take my time. Otherwise, I either might reach an injury, I either might reach somewhere where they're not enjoying what they're doing, or if they have any sort of weaknesses in their body, so it's going to show, and they're going to feel that exercise is something that's not suitable at this stage. And you know very well that many doctors out there, unfortunately, they're happy to ask their patients to stop exercising for a while because of biomarkers or injuries or things like that.
What about tempo? Tempo is also another variable that we frequently speak about when it comes to hypertrophy.
So tempo is something that mainly we used to monitor the time under tension whenever we asked people to do 4, 2, 4, whatever. Also, there was a couple of theories that it might affect the type of hypertrophy that is happening. It might affect if my sarcomeres, or like the small units that includes the actin, myosin, all of that, are growing in length or in parallel. All of these are still theories. Again, what we know that it's similar to what we've discussed about time under tension. As long as I'm reaching somewhere close to failure, the set is hard enough, I'm good. Tempo is something that plays well. If I need speed, I need a fast tempo. If I need a sport that is with concentration, I need to take my time while doing the repetition, I will increase the tempo. But hypertrophy wise, it doesn't matter much. That's why on the pyramid, on the priority pyramid, usually we start with effort, volume, frequency, exercise selection and order, rest time, and then tempo and time under tension and training systems.
Mm-hmm. Let's speak about recovery. That's something that I think became very popular in the recent times. So we speak a lot, we can hear a lot about ice baths, massage, all of that things. So should I do an ice bath after training? Does it help with inflammation? Does it hamper my gains?
Okay, first of all, just a disclaimer. I have nothing against any company, or I don't work for any company. So whatever I'm going to say here is not
Science,
related. It's just based on what research paper present. Because, especially right now, there are brands that are big on such of training tools and gimmicks. So first of all, recovery. And just to remember that our client train 1 hour at the gym. They have 23 hours to spend, outside the gym. So it's about the recovery. It's very important how to recover, because if they're not recovering properly, this will affect their training and their results. So recovery is when my body is rebuilding what was damaged, is when my body is getting back the energy that I used, removing the substrate. So now my body is ready for another session. Now, how this happens, how we recover. First of all, it's very important to differentiate between pain and recovery. Whenever it's painful after the session and pain is gone, that doesn't mean you're recovered. That means pain sensation is like it's removed or it's decreased. So this is exactly what happens when we use things like foam rolling, ice bath, massage. We've noticed that if we're using these techniques, and a lot of techniques like, for example, ice bath or massage, for example, or even foam rolling, pain sensation decreased. However, when it comes to recovery, it's not the same. And the way they did that is by conducting a control trial or randomized control trial and getting people, split them into groups, a group using foam roller, a group using massage and ice bath. And what they did is that, they trained them before, they checked their exercise performance, they put them into this recovery process, and after that, they put them to train again. And they noticed that their performance is not the same. So they're still not recovered. Mm-hmm. So it's good for pain sensation. Sometimes if you've trained, it's really painful, you want to reduce pain sensation, it's good you can do as simple as foam rolling, because massage, or it might be expensive. Ice bath might be not convenient for you to do it, and might not be pleasant because eventually it's an ice bath. So you might choose to do some foam rolling, some dynamic stretches, and this might reduce pain sensation for you. It might feel comfortable. However, when it comes to recovery, best thing you can do is try to stay active as much as you comfortably can to maintain your comfortable range of motion. Try to eat well, sleep well, and give it its time, because it requires eventually time for you to recover properly.
I feel that people just like to add all of these extra things, whereby at the base of it is just proper nutrition and sleep. Like, get that right first, and then if you want to do things on top of that to help yourself feel better.
Absolutely. And think of it this way, that like the industry reached a point where it's trending, it's booming, and we still want to create things. At least company, that's what they do. They still want to create things to sell. So the way to do things is try to create a problem and try to create a solution. A lot of things you see in an industry, whether a lot of supplements, whether a lot of equipment or machines, you see these in the industry and their efficiency level is either low to none. However, people keep buying these things because they think that this is something that speed up a reaction or makes them reach their goals easily. And like social media out there, it's rare to find like people understand what's evidence, and if they can understand if people are talking something or speaking about something that is evidence-based, or just because they have their a certain expertise or a degree. Because a lot of people out there, they speak because they have a degree, but that's not enough for you to talk about a subject and to like talk about something accurately, because you need evidence whether you have a degree or not.
Definitely. I have another sub question when it comes to foam rolling. So you mentioned that it helps with pain reduction. Does it also, and can it also help in recovery?
Not really in recovery. However, foam roller is a great tool that you can use for your warm-up. So if you're spending a lot of time just for to get your body ready to perform properly in a squat and to gain back your range of motion after a long day, for example, of sitting at the office, foam roller have shown that it could help for the first 3 minutes. So there was a research where they got 3 groups of people, and they asked the group to do 1 set of foam rolling, 3 sets, and 10 sets. And they assessed their range of motion for 1 minute later, 3 minutes later, and 30 minutes later. And after that, they checked like what was the best approach. The best approach was doing it for 3 minutes, full body, and like couple of rolls, that's it. And it's beneficial for 3 minutes. Now once you start exercising, you will maintain this range of motion, so it will help you in a warm-up. So instead of doing several minutes of stretching, you can do 1 minute, 2 minutes of foam rolling, and it will help improve your performance during like just this session. Not like myofascial release or any magical trick. As for recovery, not really.
And what about ice baths and hypertrophy? I was reading a couple of articles, and there was a lot of conflicting information. We have another guest speaker joining us quite soon. A lot of sources would mention that it actually can negatively impact hypertrophy if done right after the training.
That's true. It was observed in a couple of studies, but if it's something, like there are many factors to play here. If it's done for a long period of time, if you frequently do it, and if the person is somewhere close to their athletic potential. So this is why, if it's something you don't have to do it, I would say like you don't enjoy doing it, you don't see any benefits in it, just don't do it. Simple. So because there are a couple of papers that they show that it could negatively affect performance and hypertrophy.
So to move on from rest and recovery into deload, how important is deload for athletes? Definitely, because they cannot be performing at a high peak level year round. How do we implement deload, and do we need to implement it for general public?
Good news is that this year we had a lot of papers published on deload, but just to make sure that this is clear, there's a difference between deload and training cessation. So some people think that training cessation, like I stop, I do another activity, that's deload. Deload, it's deloading. It's still training at a smaller load or volume, usually load. So it was shown in multiple studies when it comes to strength and when it comes to hypertrophy. In many cases, now specifically hypertrophy, it might negatively affect your performance. The reason why, if you don't need to deload and you just deload, it was observed in many papers that you go back and with a smaller, just a reduced hypertrophy or muscle size and performance, and this will negatively affect you in the next session. Strength training is showing more efficiency to deload. So what I would say is that this theory that every 3 to 4 weeks you should have 1 week of a deload, I would say it's not something that should be taken by the book. It should be played by the book. It should be played in a way where if your client feel they need a deload session, then it can be a session, doesn't have to be a week. It can be, for example, for the lower body, not for the upper body. Your upper body might be fine. Your lower body might be craving for some rest or a deload. Because eventually, if you keep on training at higher weights and higher loads, you might reach a point where your joints are tired, your ligaments are tired. So you don't want to reach that phase. That's why you can introduce a couple of sessions of deload, dropping the weight, increasing the repetitions, or dropping the total number of hard sets probably.
What are some signs that can be indicative of the need for deload? So how can we know whether the client needs it or not?
Major sign, plateauing. So plateau, reaching somewhere where you're not improving. You have exactly the same, you're using exactly the same weights. Let's say if you're squatting 100 kg for 4 reps, you keep on trying to increase the weight, it's still not working. Either the supportive muscles or the main muscles are failing. Or probably you're reaching a point where soreness is taking more time. You're reaching a point where you have joint pain. So these are signs that immediately you should, consider deloading a couple of muscles or areas or your full body. It depends.
And when we speak about hypertrophy, there should be some difference between training men and women due to the hormonal cycle.
Okay.
We don't have to dive into details because it's a very broad topic, but we can just have an overview.
I would definitely say, more or less for now, it's not 100% confirmed in research that when it comes to hypertrophy, there's a huge difference in how you train man and woman. There's only one paper that, the number of subject was, I think, 24 or 26. They noticed in that paper that women, they're having a little bit better results when they reach closer to failure. So again, in that paper, what they were measuring is the loss in velocity. So they were training a group at 20% loss of velocity and at 40% loss of velocity. Meaning if you're squatting at 1 meter per second, for example, you need to lose 20%, that's group 1. And so it needs to be slower, 20%. The other group by 40%, so even slower, meaning closer to failure. So they just noticed for these participants that women training at 40% loss of velocity, they gained more hypertrophy. They had more hypertrophy. So it's not enough. It's just still like a new topic. It's still like one paper. We might need, could use a lot of research, but so we can train them the same, but there is something that we should take into account is the whole cycle for the woman. So here we're taking something broad. We're talking about something like in general, training women for hypertrophy is similar to men, but we cannot neglect and not think about the cycle, because the cycle, the 1 month or 28 days, can be different from early follicular to ovulation to PMSing. In a nutshell, quickly, what I would advise here is, number one, if you're training women, and if that's fine, and if you're comfortable having this discussion with your client, ask them to track their cycle for 1 to 2 or 3 months, just to make sure things are standardized and things are clear. And then you will know that, once you study a little bit about hormones, you know that from day 1 to day 14, this is when your estrogen levels are high. This might be a point where you might use heavier weights if practically it works. If practically it doesn't work, just forget about it. As for after day 14, the luteal phase, which is day 15 all the way to 28, and especially if you get closer to PMSing, this is where the body is a bit tired because the body is getting ready for pregnancy, whether there's pregnancy or not. So this is where you might consider reducing the weight and taking into account the psychological aspect while training women. So these are things I would say, take them into account. You don't play them by the book. They might happen. Just first of all, start by tracking and trying to observe a pattern. So you might notice that your client is stronger at ovulation or stronger at early follicular. It's individual. Track the cycle and try to introduce a couple of things that might help. And for now, if you feel female clients, they can push close to hypertrophy and they're fine with that more than your male client, this is something that was shown in one paper, and it might be shown in more paper in the future.
It's a very broad topic. I don't want to jump like more into
Sure.
detail. One more question that I would like to ask you is, we covered hypertrophy. Let's also speak a little bit about cardiovascular endurance and health, which is very important for our longevity, overall wellness and health. Does it negatively impact our hypertrophy gains when combined together?
First of all, let's stress on the importance of cardio. Cardio is very important, and even if you're out of shape, even if you're to a certain extent you're not eating properly, as long you train your heart muscle, this will reduce the risk factors and mortality chains based on a huge study conducted by the World Health Organization and many other organizations and institutions as well. So cardio is very important, at least as the recommendation says, 75 to 150 minutes per week if it's high intensity, 150 to 300 if it's moderate. If not, just at least try to have more step counts. I'm not saying do 10,000 per day. I'm saying just increase your step count and your step speed. It's more important than the count. Now, when it comes to what worry most of the bodybuilders, and especially anyone that wants to bulk up, is interference effect, whether it negatively affects hypertrophy. So, true, in some papers it showed that it might negatively affect, but sometimes we take a topic and we just generalize it for everyone. We need to understand the nuances here. It negatively affects hypertrophy, first of all, if you overdo it for advanced people, not for beginners. Beginners, they're fine. Intermediate, they're fine. As for bodybuilders, people that are competing, people that they're at a high level, what you can do to mitigate the interference effect is, instead of avoid doing it before your workout. And that's, I think, what most of bodybuilders do. If you want to have it after the workout or on another day. You will remove any kind of interference effect in that case. And try to do things that are moderate, things like walking fast, things you enjoy doing. So these are things that have lower interference effect with you, but keep on doing cardio because it's very important, whether you're a bodybuilder, intermediate, or a beginner.
Just to be mindful of the time, I would like to ask you, you were referring a lot to research. What sources do you normally go to? Like, where can we find the same quality information?
Right. And I totally understand, this is something in our era, in the fitness industry right now, that had lots of defensiveness or resistance from many exercise professionals, because thinking that research frequently change. And it's true, probably, I'm not sure if you remember a few things I talked about in 2016. These are things that I don't even talk about nowadays. That we cannot blame research when it comes to that, because research in 2016, they're different than research now in terms of technology, in terms of funding, in terms of what we already know, and research, they keep on building on previous work. So in terms of sources, as you know, that most of researchers, when they conduct their papers, they publish it in a journal. Things like British Journal of Sports Medicine, Journal of Physical Therapists, Journal of Strength and Conditioning. There's a database that combines the work of most of these journals. It's called PubMed. It's a database where you can go there, just Google PubMed, and you can go there and start searching for topics. You can also check a couple of tutorials on YouTube. They will teach you not just how to research on PubMed, like how to use some keywords. And then there are a lot of researchers and professionals in the industry, like Eric Helms, Greg Nuckols, Brad Schoenfield, Lane Norton, that you can follow. And they, in many cases, what they do is they do the critical appraisal process. So they show you how they take a research and check the researchers. They probably talk about the limitations, talk about the areas of strength, because there's no complete research. So I encourage trainers to start reading and upgrading their knowledge in that direction. Otherwise, the risk is that they're going to keep on learning from books that might not be backed up by enough research, or that might be biased, and they might be also listening to presenters that they don't know from where they're getting their information. So always hold your presenter, your textbooks, your workshop presenters and tutors accountable. Ask them for the source of information. Try to educate yourself on how to read papers. Do I have the time to give an example?
Yes, yes. I was going to actually ask that as a sub-question.
The booming research this year was the one comparing hip thrust and squats to glutes hypertrophy. Which one is better? So that was a paper that was published this year for many researchers and big names in the industry, and it showed that they're similar when it comes to hypertrophy. They have similar effects. If you read the paper, so if you download the manuscript, sometimes you have to pay for the manuscript, and again, I encourage trainers to invest in this, and sometimes they're free. So if you download the manuscript and you start reading it with the supplemental material, so they're saying that everyone was squatting enough depth. However, if you look at pictures, most of the participants, they were squatting to, way more than parallel, not even parallel. That's one thing. Another thing you read in the paper that they didn't force anyone to reach failure. They reach something that is volitionary failure, where whenever they feel like stopping, they stop. Multiple things were there, multiple limitations that if you read the paper, it's not enough to say that squats and hip thrusts, they have similar effect. And there's one more thing, is that one of the contributors to this paper is the glute guy, Brett Contreras, where actually this is kind of conflict of interest, because he supports and he sells equipment to support hip thrust movement. So that's an example how you can read a paper and look at few things. This is something that you can develop, this skill, which is critical appraisal, with time, but I definitely encourage trainer to go into that direction.
So just because something has been published in a scientific journal doesn't mean that you should take it blindly. You should still basically break it down and have your...
Absolutely, and doesn't mean it's a devil. We still learned a lot from this paper, but it still had its own limitations. So most important, don't get too excited and too emotional about a paper, presenter, or a book. Always have this grain of salt, this question mark in the back of your head, what if. Go out there, search, so you can deliver the best to your clients.
Can you tell us more about your Inspire Fitness Academy? How can the trainers reach you and the courses that you are running?
Absolutely. So we've been here in the UAE for the last almost 3 years. We've been in general, in Lebanon and many other countries for 13 years. What we do is we have our own content. We developed our own programs and workshops. They can reach out to us online on our Instagram page, Inspire Fitness Academy, or our website. We have courses that are self-study, self-paced. And one thing we do as well is the monthly updates on science of training. And this is huge for trainers. Some trainers, they're like, I would like to know more about research, the latest research. So what we do, we publish 5 topics on a monthly basis that leads to 1 CPD by reps and ACSM on a monthly basis, where trainers can upgrade their knowledge. So there are lots of resources and lots of things that we offer, and things that we offer for free as well, such as some of the educational days, online tools, online courses. And again, they can reach out to us on our website and our Instagram page.
Okay, so also for all the in-person workshops and events that you'll be holding, we're going to be sharing this information with you guys directly. I would like to open these last 5 to 10 minutes of the session for you to ask questions. So online or in person, now is your time. If you have any questions, program design related, or was everything clear and answered in this 1 hour?
Yes.
Yes.
True. There are multiple research about exercise in general and exercise that they can adhere to and they can perform. However, since the main issue is in insulin resistance, we know that the more we do resistance training and the more we push our muscles and have more muscles, this can help improve insulin sensitivity. So this is what we know. Not a specific exercise selection, but basically just pushing them to do resistance training as much as they comfortably can.
Anybody else? Any challenges you're facing?
Sure. Well, the recovery have a lot to do with the how much you're reaching failure. So if you're doing a lot of hard sets and reaching failure on multiple hard sets, what will happen here is that they need more time to recover. And also there's the individuality factor. So some people, it's crazy, like they can recover in 24 hours. Some people, they need more time. So what I would say is that I would observe the client. If you see the client is doing great from one session to the other, they're still recovering because you're just doing one exercise, 2 to 3 sets, for example, you can do this approach. There's nothing that will prevent you from doing this approach. However, if you notice that their performance is dropping and it's not improving, that means there's something that you need to look at and change. The only problem when it comes to program design is trying your best to monitor all variables, because not all the time your clients is reporting genuinely what they're actually doing, if they're eating properly, if they're sleeping properly. The only variable that you can modify and you can monitor and control is training. This is why, if you notice, regardless what's the reason, but if you still notice that they're not improving, you coach them about sleep and nutrition, and then you modify the exercise program. So if it's like 5 times, 6 times full body workout per week, then you will change that to 4 days, 3 days, or go for a split routine. Change the program. Excellent question. Well, I wouldn't change frequently the program unless I would change minor things. The only reason is that you want your client to adapt to the program they're doing. You want them at least to do it 3-4 weeks. As long as they're improving, I wouldn't consider changing it. The only factor that will push me to change it if they're bored. So in that case, I will try to change the way the exercises look, but not the full exercise. Like I would go from, for example, a high bar squat to probably low bar squat or a front squat, but I would keep the squat. I would go for an RDL instead of a deadlift, for example. I change 1 exercise, 2 exercises if they're bored, if they want a change. However, if they're still like having benefits and improving while doing the exercise program, there's no need for you to change anything. Sure. Yeah, true. Right. Thank you so much for bringing this up, and this is very important. I remember when I was a personal trainer, I learned this the hard way, to be honest. Most of my clients, like at the beginning when I was new to the industry, like the first year, I was shy and I was like, I really want to sell personal training and have more clients and make more money, but then I noticed that I'm allowing the client to take expertise and take the lead. The problem in training and nutrition, since people eat and train, they develop some sense of expertise. Since they have friends that they reach their goals, they think that they know what they're doing and they can tell you what to do. And they hire you to tell you what to do. And this is something you should change right at the beginning. So while doing your consultation session, it's very important to make it clear to your client, especially when you sense that your client's personality is something we call more a director personality. So they're trying to force you to do something. They're a bit aggressive in certain situations. So you try to tell them that I understand that you might hurt a couple of things, but I studied this. I'm here to apply science. So a few things I might apply that it's not something common, or it's not something that your friends might do, but I'm here dedicated for you to reach your results. So if you want us to work on the results, I'm going to help you. It might not be the way you expect that's going to happen, but I'm here to explain what's going on in your body and why you're going to reach these results. The more I explain this process at the beginning and I show them a level of expertise and I don't allow them to force what they want. Like, for example, some people still think if they do 200, 300 abs repetitions, they're going to lose fat specifically from that area. And they force you. They'll tell you like, I didn't feel like we trained enough. Tell them why. After a really heavy session, they're like, because we didn't do abs. So at the beginning, I started telling them that this is how it works, showing them that I'm an expert in a friendly way without using authority, by just using confidence, science, research, and simplifying it for clients to understand. Then they will gradually listen to you and start working with. Some people, it's not magic. Some people, they will never listen to you. They will change a trainer. They will choose a trainer that they will do whatever they want. Here, it's for you to remember your reputation. You don't want to give trainers exercises that are not evidence-based, they're not useful, just for the sake that they're paying and they're happy. You can find clients that they will show results, because at the end of the day, why people would hire you. They would hire you because they see other clients that they reach their results. So I would choose carefully the quality of the clients that I train to maintain long-term reputation. And that's an excellent question. Thank you.
I would also like to add, I think with time, when they start seeing results with your guidance, that's probably another building block. But you need to reach there first.
Absolutely. And I give the example, I lived this example as a trainer, and not just as a trainer, also as an educator. Since we started working at Inspire Fitness Academy and developing the academy, we wanted to develop a program that is robust. And here in the UAE, I think many people don't choose Inspire Academy because they know it's really robust. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time for them to complete the program and get certified. So business-wise, it's not the best model. Long-term wise, it is. Like, it's something we worked on in, for example, Lebanon. As a start, we were the least preferred academy. Now we're the most preferred academy because we built a standard. This is something that we're also working on. So on a short-term basis, yes, you might feel that your income might be affected, but your reputation is not. But then you position yourself as one of the honest, genuine trainers, and people that really wants results, they will pay you anything to train with you.
100% agreed. Any last questions, or we're wrapping up the session? Online? Okay. Thank you, Patrick, so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Knowledge and experience, and thank you guys as well for joining.
Thank you.